We welcome you on this Friday to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Happy Friday, everybody. Is this the week that Andy Dalton turns into a pumpkin against Chicago? Let's talk about Sam Darnold. Is this the week that Sam Darnold turns into a pumpkin against the Jets? Dontavian Wicks is the most added player in fantasy. Dave, is this the week that he turns into a pumpkin at the Rams? I have a 4-year-old daughter. I watched Cinderella this week, and now I am ready to watch a lot of football this weekend. Dave Richard, what's going on?
I thought you were making the pumpkin references because coffees, donuts, hamburger buns, everything has turned to pumpkin as part of Halloween madness. Halloween's overtaken all of October. I thought maybe that's where you were going with it, but perhaps not. Look, I think it's going to be an interesting and telling weekend. I was at first very nervous about Darnold, especially, but I kind of settled in on Darnold being an okay start. I'm going to use him in a couple of leagues this week as a bye week replacement for Jalen Hurts.
Sam Darnold, really good with a clean pocket. I mean, really good. Struggles under pressure more than most quarterbacks, but is amazing against the blitz. So it's a weird series of stats there. And basically in 4 games, the conclusion is you have to get pressure on him with 4. The Jets might be able to do that. It's a really interesting matchup. And I mean, Baker Mayfield got us started with, one of those quarterbacks that was written off having a big week. Obviously, Cousins too. We'll talk about that. Can Darnold keep it going? Can Dalton keep it going? But before we get into those games, those 6 games that we're previewing today, and those are Jets at Vikings, Cardinals at Niners, Panthers at Bears, Colts-Jaguars, Packers, Rams, Giants, Seahawks. What a game last night. How improbable was that, Dave? I mean, from stealing victory from the jaws of defeat, trailing late, making history, the Mets with a huge win, Dave Richard, and that 3-run homer by Pete Alonso. Unbelievable.
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about with the baseball game. I was busy watching Atlanta steal yet another win. I feel like this is their 3rd win this year that was kind of sort of gift wrapped. And look, like some teams, remember that Vikings team from a couple of years ago? Just felt like every game went their way at the end. I wonder if Atlanta is that kind of team this year where clutch Kirk Cousins comes through with huge games at the end, or huge drives, I guess I should say, at the end of the games. But I mean, I think we should give them credit too. They put up a lot of points in the first half. And look, I think this offense looks a lot better passing wise than it did. Remember week 1, how bad that was for Atlanta?
Oh, yeah.
But dude, I've got some questions about Bijan and his usage and all that stuff. This is starting to be kind of problematic.
I mean, to think that Atlanta and Tampa Bay could play a 36-30 game, go to overtime, have this much scoring, have this really great of a game for fantasy, and Bijan Robinson is just not that involved. 12 carries, 3 catches. I was so frustrated because he started getting going late in the game, and then on the next possession, Tyler Allgeier's out there. What's your message to Bijan managers?
Well, I certainly don't want to sell low on him, which is like what one of your options is right now. So unless somebody comes at you with, I don't know, Kenneth Walker III, you're probably going to keep Bijan Robinson. But there's too much of Tyler Allgeier. The snap share doesn't say it, though. Bijan had 2/3 of the snaps in the game. Allgeier had 1/3. Bijan dominated on 3rd downs, 9 of 14 snaps. Only 1 snap. How about this? They scored 36 points, the Falcons did. They only had 1 snap inside the 10. Allgeier was in on that play. Some research needs to be done as to why Allgeier is getting so much work. But Bijan had that big run. It was in the 3rd quarter. He only had 5 second-half carries. That's a little concerning to me. And they rode Kirk Cousins' arm against Tampa Bay. They must have thought that that's the best way that they could attack them. Look, I think if you've got a great running back, you use him. Maybe they're starting to think that they don't have that great running back anymore.
I don't know, man. I mean, well, first of all, obviously they were playing from behind, so they had to get away from the run a little bit, right, in the second half. But they threw 58 times, 509 yards, which is unbelievable. Yeah, so who would you rather have rest of season, Drake London or Bijan Robinson?
The fact that I'm even hesitating should tell you how far Bijan has fallen. I think next week's trade chart will still have Bijan ahead of Drake London, but it's getting close between those two, certainly in full PPR.
Let's kind of go rapid fire here. Baker Mayfield, is he start no matter what? Don't even worry about the matchup until further notice.
That's how I feel about him. He's got New Orleans in week 6. After that, it's Baltimore, it's Atlanta again, and then it's at Kansas City. So it's not like it's a cakewalk for him, but the offensive line will actually get healthier as he moves along. This was another game without his starting right tackle, and that the defense just continues to get trampled. I don't know how they get better. So, yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of favorable game scripts, and he's got 2 great receivers, 3 if you count Chris Godwin. No, it's Godwin and Evans I meant. Sterling Shepard is in the mix, and he'll get some of those younger receivers back as well. That'll give him some field stretching power. Yes, to answer your question, yes.
Mike Evans, I know Godwin's coming off a disappointing game, but they only threw the ball 24 times. He actually led the team in receiving, so I think I'm still planning on starting him pretty much every week. But for Bucky Irving and Rachaad White, is it sit them until further notice?
I think they're excellent as bye week replacements. If you're picking between the two, I think Rachaad White kind of proved that he's still the better bet for fantasy. He had a huge snap advantage over Irving as well, and he had 3 or 4 snaps inside the 5, 9 of 11 on third down. So yeah, we're going back to Rachaad White for now. That fumble by Bucky Irving isn't any good. So Irving's still worth rostering. Rachaad White's going to be the one that you'll start first.
Yeah, and Cade Otton, 37% rostered. For him to have 3 for 44 on 4 targets on a day where Baker Mayfield threw 24 times for 180 yards, that's really not that bad. So I do think you can continue, if you're streaming Carolina next week. On the other side of the ball, yeah, I mean, what am I even supposed to do with this Kirk Cousins game? 42.4 fantasy points. He's 63% rostered, 21% started. He still doesn't ever leave the pocket. Right. Nope. He still doesn't get as much velocity on the throws. I mean, Kirk Herbstreit was talking about that. He's not pushing off on the foot, but he made it work. And this is now his second big, good game of the year. But obviously, I mean, career high. And I don't even know how to react to this incredible game from Kirk Cousins. So you tell me, how should I think right now?
He broke Matt Ryan's franchise single game passing yardage mark on the night that they put Matt Ryan into their Ring of Honor. That's funny. And it's a career high for Kirk Cousins as well. I think he continues to be a terrific bye week replacement quarterback, number 2 quarterback. I'm a little bit more encouraged by the passing velocity. The throw to Darnell Mooney for a touchdown, really difficult throw. There were like 3 Bucs defenders around him, and he pinned it right on Mooney. Mooney caught it, touchdown. It was excellent on the first play, or on Mooney's first touchdown, rather. I think that Cousins can still continue to come through for solid numbers, but not necessarily outstanding numbers. You mentioned that he's got Carolina next week. After that, Seattle, Tampa Bay again, Dallas. His schedule's a little bit easier, I would argue, than what Baker Mayfield will have. I'll still start Mayfield over Cousins, but I think you could consider Cousins as someone, if you're streaming quarterbacks, if you're unhappy with your quarterback, if you need a bye week replacement, absolutely he should be on the radar.
I guess the last question is the Falcons passing game just something that we're going to be starting? I mean, no one's sitting Drake London at this point. He's been good now, but Mooney, 71% rostered, 35% started. Kyle Pitts, Mooney had a huge game, by the way, 9 catches, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. London had 12 for 154 and a touchdown. Kyle Pitts, 88% rostered, 53% started, 7 catches for 88 yards on 8 targets.
And he looked good. I'll give him credit.
And they said they wanted to get him more involved before the game, and this time it actually happened. But again, it was 58 pass attempts, and it was 8 targets, so that's not amazing. But is it all systems go for Mooney and Pitts now?
I think fantasy managers will gravitate back to Pitts for at least a couple of games. Certainly the matchup against Carolina is one where they'll feel good about having Kyle Pitts in their lineup because, again, who are you going to put in there ahead?
I'm sorry. I said that was Otton's matchup. Otton's at New Orleans.
No.
Pitts matchup. Pitts is
right. Otton's at New Orleans. And that's a tougher matchup,
I
obviously. I mean, how much everybody's tougher than Carolina pretty much at this point. Maybe not Las Vegas. That's besides the point.
Yeah.
I think Mooney's going to continue to be one of these flex guys, but a high-end flex guy. I could see myself ranking him top 30 next week against Carolina. Next week better be, dare I say, Adam, next week is the Jobu week for Bijan Robinson against the Carolina Panthers. This is one of the worst run defenses in the league. He better put up a big game here. And if he does, then yeah, that could cause a little bit of consternation for those that are going to start Mooney and Pitts and to a degree Drake London and Kirk Cousins. But he better get it done. And if he doesn't get it done against Carolina, then I think it could be panic time for fantasy managers who have Bijan.
And one thing I'll say, I mean, if you were watching the game last night, there was just so little pressure on the quarterbacks. The Falcons cannot get to the quarterback. I think they're a really good matchup. They had a 20% pressure rate last night. That's horrible. Yeah. Tampa Bay had a 33% pressure rate. That's okay. They had 4 sacks, but too many times where Cousins just had no one around him. All right. That is Atlanta 36 and Tampa Bay 30.
Nah.
All right. Sunday is a big day for us. We've got London football, and we've got, that's Jets and Vikings, and we've got our start sit show. Our Q&A is usually 11:30 to 1 Eastern on youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. We're breaking it up into 2 segments. It is official now. Part 1, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern. This game starts at 9:30, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, it always does.
I will confirm.
Yeah.
9:30 a.m. Eastern time.
All right, so we'll see at 9 a.m., and you can watch that 2 places. You can watch that youtube.com/fantasyfootball today or simulcast on CBS Sports HQ. Then we're going to take a little break. We're going to watch some football. We're going to have some breakfast, and then we're going to come back at noon Eastern from 12 to 1. We're going to answer your start sit questions, and that will be only on YouTube. That's not simulcast, right? That's just, I think. Let me know if anything our producers.
I mean, you can put it on your phone and on your TV and then on your iPad, and then it's simulcasting.
That's just youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. Now, real quick, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, let's do that. Use the bonus code FANTASY, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Download the BetMGM app. Use that bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. Going to deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. And if you want some player props, you can watch us on CBS Sports Network at 1 p.m. today. I'm filling in for Katie. I'm coming up with the player props. Let's do it. We'll be right back with news and notes and one question for each game on FFT.
All right. CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Don't forget to check out our mailbag episode, 2:30 p.m. on Friday. If you want to watch it live, you'll hear it on Saturday, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you want to email us, it's fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. That is the letter I, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Quarterback news, Anthony Richardson still limited. We're ranking him, expecting him to play. Will Levis has an AC sprain, and he should be okay to play. According to Paul Kuharski, he'll likely have some pain when he plays, but expect Will Levis to play next week after their bye. Running back, Jonathan Taylor, missing practice again, not ranking him, right?
He's in there, but he's going to get moved down, obviously. He'll probably get ruled out on Friday, and then Trey Sermon steps up. Trey Sermon is available in one second. Oh, crap, I hit the wrong button. Come back to me on Trey Sermon's rostership.
Yeah, actually, we can do a little impromptu segment here, Dave, and talk about the injured running backs, right? Because you've got the Colts situation. You've got Brian Robinson Jr. missing practice and Austin Eckler practicing in full. And I've seen some people picking up Jeremy McNichols. You've got Devin Singletary saying he has a chance to play, but it doesn't look great right now for Singletary. And you've got people picking up Tyrone Tracy for that matchup at Seattle. You've got Zamir White leaving practice on Wednesday, missing practice on Thursday, and Alexander Madison now with a void to fill, and he was taking over perhaps anyway at Denver. And Nick Chubb is practicing, but I don't think he's going to play. I'm not sure if I'm missing any. But if we look at the Colts, the Commanders, the Giants, and the Raiders, you want to just talk about the fill-in running backs there. And so in this scenario, we're just going to say hypothetically, Jonathan Taylor is out at Jacksonville. Brian Robinson is out against Cleveland. Devin Singletary is out at Seattle, and Zamir White is out at Denver. How would you rank their replacements?
Trey Sermon would be at the top of the list because I think he'd handle pretty much all the rushing downs work, all the short yardage work, and maybe even a little bit of the third down work. Tyler Goodson would also get in there, and Trey Sermon's available in 55% of CBS Sports leagues. I'm sounding the alarm. Go get him. Find a spot for him on your bench. If you need a running back this week, he should be in consideration as a bye week replacement, maybe even a number 2 running back because the matchup is so good against Jacksonville. And if you're playing against Jonathan Taylor, absolutely find a way to carry Trey Sermon so you can play keep away from your opponent. Because the Commanders are going to split reps between Eckler and McNichols, that's the belief. I think I'd prefer Alexander Mattison next up because I think Alexander Mattison has a chance to kind of have that same role as what I talked about for Trey Sermon. And he's averaged 2 yards per carry more than Zamir White already this year. Not nearly as many carries as Zamir White, but I think Alexander Mattison can end up being a pretty decent option. I just don't like his matchup nearly as much as Trey Sermon's. You asked about the Commanders running backs. I think I'm going to end up being Eckler more so than McNichols, but I thought McNichols looked good last week, so either one of them would be fine. McNichols is available in about the same amount of fantasy leagues as Sermon. I'd rather have Sermon, but if you're playing against Brian Robinson and you want to play keep away, McNichols would be somebody that you can go and pick up. You named one other team. Which one was it?
Giants.
I don't know if I want any piece of that backfield. Seattle's defense is going to get healthier. I don't think their rookie Byron Murphy is going to play, but I think Leonard Williams is expected back. Their pass rush will come back. And I don't think Tyrone Tracy is going to get like every single snap for them. So another running back on that roster, I would suppose it would be Eric Gray, would work with Tyrone Tracy. These guys might catch some passes, and maybe they're good for 2 or 3 catches each from Daniel Jones. But this is starting to look like a shellacking coming the Giants' way. No Neighbors, no Singletary. Seattle defense getting stronger. Seattle's already a better team than the Giants. I have a tough time believing that the Giants' offense will put points on the board.
Okay, good stuff there. And so the only thing is you said Sermon, Madison, McNichols, Tracy. But what about Eckler? Is Eckler?
Well, listen, this is about if Eckler's on your team, you mean?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I know he's not a waiver wire guy, but we talked about this game yesterday, and we didn't really talk much about Eckler if Brian Robinson's out.
I think that the matchup isn't so good for Eckler, and I still don't think he's going to dominate playing time. It's going to be real close between him and Madison in full PPR. Maybe I'll give Eckler. Nah, I don't think I'm going to. I'm going to give Madison the edge over Eckler. Non-PPR, it's Madison for sure.
I'm going to start him over. I mean, Sermon, I get some serious. I don't think I said this on the air, but I get some Cam Akers vibes with Sermon. Like, I just don't think he's very good. I don't think he's going to catch passes, whereas Madison is, and Eckler certainly is. Eckler's got double-digit PPR fantasy points in every game he's played, and that's been with Brian Robinson. I don't know. I have a couple of leagues where I have Sermon, and I definitely have to start him in one. But I'm not like super thrilled about it. We could throw Cam Akers in this discussion too, because Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce are not practicing. Would he be at the top of the list?
I'm not sure if he would be. I think I might have a little bit more faith in Sermon. And a lot of it with Sermon is he kind of earned that number 2 role early on for Indianapolis. And that's still a good rushing offense. And I think it might also depend, and it might work out either way for him, who the quarterback is. Although I do think that if Flacco starts, Jacksonville probably won't play as much man coverage. And they've been man heavy to begin with, which is kind of weird. But I wonder if they'll play a little bit more zone because they won't be blitzing Flacco as much as they might be blitzing and run blitzing the Colts offense with Richardson.
All right. Well, there's a little bit of a running back update for you there. Ken Walker was limited. Don't think that's a big deal. Raheem Mostert was limited. See if he can play. Kendry Miller is back at practice for the Saints, whatever. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is practicing, but may not come off IR, and they have a bye next week, so hopefully he doesn't come off IR because you can just keep him stashed, or otherwise you're definitely a lot of people are going to have to drop Clyde if they picked him up. Nick Chubb is practicing, but we're not expecting him to play this week at Washington.
It sounds like he's a week or two away.
Okay. And Cordero Patterson and Jalen Warren continue to miss practice. They are not expected to play as of now on Sunday night against the Cowboys.
By the way, Chubb is a week or two away, so the window to buy sort of low on him is here. You could put in the offers now, and if a team has Nick Chubb on their bench and they're 1-3, and if they're desperately in need of a starter this week at a position you can afford to give away, make the offer for Chubb, because it sounds like he's looking like his old self. And so if you're getting the old version of Nick Chubb, even with all the issues that the Browns have on offense, you're going to want to have that player on your fantasy team, especially if you can give up. It's going to have to be a quality bench player at minimum, but that'll help you down the line.
All right, let's get to the wide receiver news. Rashee Rice is on IR. Don't drop him yet. You're not out of the woods. He still might have the ACL injury, so we'll hopefully know next week, but Rashee Rice is on IR. Romeo Doubs is questionable due to personal reasons. So I hope he's able to play on Sunday, but if not, and you're desperate, I don't know if that would mean Malik Heath or Bo Melton stepping in.
I'd lean Bo Melton, but it's kind of a coin flip.
Ricky Pearsall could practice soon for the 49ers, but now here's the bigger news. DK Metcalf was limited. Bigger news, at least in terms of week 5. DK Metcalf, he's fine. Malik Neighbors, though, he missed practice and right now is not expected to play for the Giants. Deontay Johnson is expected to play. Tank Dell is expected to play. Khalil Shakir, this is a questionable one here. Khalil Shakir missing practice for the second straight game, and we'll check on him on Friday. This is why you got to listen to the Mailbag Show, and I think we mentioned this yesterday. Brandon Cooks is out this week. TJ Hawkinson's going to practice today. He's not coming back this week, but he's getting closer. Taysom Hill has fractured ribs. Are you ranking Taysom Hill?
I do not believe we are.
George Kittle missed practice. Are you ranking George Kittle?
Yes.
Evan Ingram was limited. Trey McBride looks like he's good to go. He practiced in full. And David Njoku missed practice on Thursday. That was a planned rest day. Hopefully back out there. Ingram and Njoku are the two that I'm keeping an eye on. I hope they can play this week. Offensive line, Teron Armstead practiced in full for the Dolphins. Laramie Tunsil's day-to-day for the Texans. Jack Conklin, Cleveland's right tackle, he practiced. He's not a lock to play, but they could use all the help they can get. And on defense, DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be out for many weeks, but Micah Parsons has been ruled out for Sunday's game for the Cowboys. San Francisco linebacker Fred Warner missed practice. Jair Alexander, I think he came back I think he was limited in practice yesterday. Green Bay's cornerback. The Patriots secondary, the Giants secondary, they're beat up. Patriots facing the Dolphins. Giants are at the Seahawks. Dave mentioned it. Seattle looks like they're getting healthier. They had a lot of guys return to practice. And Miami linebacker David Long, a very good IDP player, he was limited in practice after missing last week's game. All right, one question for each game. The Jets are at the Vikings. Very strange. The Vikings, in our minds, this is a really good defense. Well, they have given up the most passing yards in football, which shocked me, but they've also seen the most pass attempts in football. Start or sit. All right, I'm going to phrase it differently. Do we like Garrett Wilson this week?
I think we just like Garrett Wilson. I think he's a low-end number 2 wide receiver. He's a little bit more touchdown dependent than we'd like to admit. The reason why the Vikings are giving up all these numbers, Adam, is because of Jordan Love last week. Love went crazy throwing the football. He attacked them deep. It worked out for them. Could the Jets emulate that? I don't think they'll do it to the same level that Jordan Love did. And depending on if Jair Alexander plays or not, I would be I would be a little cautious with Garrett Wilson. I'm also not sure that he's getting like the type of usage and looks and reads that an alpha receiver would get.
Well, he hasn't been. No.
That's a little troubling.
But
he's we drafted Wilson.
Such a tough schedule. So I think the hope is that he's finally freed from these elite cornerbacks. And we'll see. Garrett Wilson also, like, route depth way down. ADOT is a joke. Garrett Wilson should not have an 8.4 yard ADOT. Throw the ball downfield to Garrett Wilson. All right. Next up, Arizona at San Francisco. Who do you like better, Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel?
That's easy. That's Deebo Samuel. And I'm nervous that I've got Brandon Ayuk ranked too high, and he's behind Garrett Wilson. He's a borderline number 2 wide receiver, and it's because he's done nothing. His usage is it should be better than it is, and it's already pretty decent. But here are the 49ers. They've got another receiver that they can feed in Jawan Jennings. and Debo's doing his thing too. And Ayuk, who always struggles against, and not always struggles, but his numbers aren't as bombastic when he goes up against zone coverage defenses. And here comes another one in the Arizona Cardinals. So I'm a little nervous about Ayuk. I think I might have to move him down a little bit. Currently 23rd in my rankings. For now, he is definitely behind Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson, Tyreek Hill, Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas Jr. He's behind those guys, and he's going to continue to fall.
This comment here. This is so relevant because I made a peanut butter and jelly yesterday. Adam looks like the kind of guy that uses 2 knives to make a peanut butter and jelly. I don't do that. I have a different strategy because I don't want to mix. Like, I don't want to put peanut butter in the jelly jar. First of all, obviously you put the peanut butter on first, right, Dave?
Yes, correct.
So then I put the peanut butter on first. I have extra. I will get the extra. I'll put it on the other half of the bread where the jelly's about to go. And that's how I get most of the peanut butter off. And then I put the peanut butter in. And then I put the jelly.
You don't rinse off the knife?
I don't rinse off. No, I don't rinse off.
Wow.
Do you?
Yeah.
You're a rinser?
I'm a rinser.
Okay. Next game.
You have to like shake it so that you don't get water into the jelly to dilute the jelly.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why I don't rinse. Because then then I have to wipe it.
Yeah, but then now you're getting particles of peanut butter, and I bet you lick the knife.
Sometimes. Dave, I can't believe how off track you've gotten us. Jeez. Carolina at Chicago. Do we like DJ Moore this week?
He's kind of in that same boat as Brandon Ayuk, where we want to trust him, and we know that he's capable of good games, but he hasn't quite delivered that for fantasy managers. And this sounds a little funny given the Bears' run game this season. This should be a week where they get that run game going, and they did last week. So that should give you confidence in DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson getting some good efficiency at minimum. But do the Bears just completely put it back on Caleb Williams after 1 week of letting him hand off and check down? I don't think they do. I think that they'll do what it takes to win this game. It's a great matchup for him. When Caleb does throw, there shouldn't be much pressure on him. But I think the running backs will dictate this game for Chicago. And I would be nervous about high target volume for everybody in the Chicago passing game.
All right, Indianapolis is at Jacksonville. Why should I start Travis Etienne?
Because of his upside and what he's capable of doing. And the matchup isn't very tough at all. I mean, Zaire Franklin's still playing for the Colts, and he's a good run stopper. But I still believe in Etienne's talent. We know that he's capable of 3+ catches every single week. And I think Jacksonville's going to right their ship here pretty quickly on offense. This is the matchup to do it. They're at home. Colts pass rush is beat up. Colts secondary is beat up. And Etienne will still be that lead back for the Jaguars.
Yeah, those are 2 bad defenses, Indianapolis and Jacksonville. Green Bay at the Rams. Who are you starting Dontavian Wicks over? And I'll start with Garrett Wilson, Brandon Ayuk, DJ Moore. Would you start him over those guys?
So if you look at my rankings right now, 9:14 a.m. Eastern time on Friday, Wicks is behind those guys. I think I can make the case to start Wicks over both Moore and Ayuk. I know it sounds risky because those guys are studs, and Dontavian Wicks is just a guy that had a great game last week. But Dontavian Wicks, when he's had the opportunities without Christian Watson, he's been pretty good. And this Rams defense, not very good. So I think that there is an opportunity for Dontavian Wicks to potentially get more targets than DJ Moore, as many targets as Brandon Ayuk, and put up better numbers and have better efficiency than both of those wide receivers. I'll take Garrett Wilson ahead of him, though.
Okay. And, we've talked about these wide receivers that are, people probably will start Wilson, Ayuk, and DJ Moore, but they haven't been that good. Would you start Trey Sermon over those guys?
I don't think I'm there, not even a non-PPR.
All right, Giants are at the Seahawks. DK Metcalf's number 1. Who's the second best wide receiver in this game, assuming Neighbors doesn't play?
I think it's Wan'Dale Robinson, and that's a catches count. I think he's going to end up getting a ton of those short targets again from Daniel Jones, in large part because I don't think the Giants are going to be able to run the ball, and they might not have been able to run the ball anyway with Devin Singletary, but it's going to be worse without him. And so if Singletary's out, that's the extension of the run. And Wan'Dale Robinson could end up with 10 catches again. I would bank on him.
And then I'm going to tell you, this is the last game we're previewing, so I'm going to ask a second question about it, because this is the one guy who is tearing me up. I cannot figure out how much I like him this week. It's Geno Smith. Starter sit Geno Smith.
I'm in the same boat as you, Adam. I think that Geno Smith has a chance to get you 20. I don't think he gets to 30, and I think game script is the reason why. Once again, the Giants offense, no Neighbors, no Singletary, no bueno. I think we could see Geno Smith not have to do that much, especially a week after he had to do so much for the Seattle passing game. So could he have a game where it's 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers? Yeah, I think that that's absolutely within the realm of possibility. And it would be shocking if the defense for Seattle was so bad that the Giants put up 14, 17 points and Seattle did have to score 3 or 4 touchdowns. I currently have him 11th. I've got him ahead of Kyler Murray. I don't see that changing. It's Sam Darnold and it's Patrick Mahomes as the 2 quarterbacks.
Mahomes.
Yeah, I would consider them over Geno Smith. I think Darnold could make that jump, but I don't know if Patrick Mahomes can. I don't know if I can see that happening.
I mean, look, obviously I could be wrong about this, but I would not start Mahomes over Geno Smith. Geno Smith is leading the NFL in passing yards, but he has only 4 touchdowns. We'll talk about this game later. I mean, it's all about the pass volume and whether or not the Giants can show up and make this competitive. But I mean, Mahomes just hasn't done anything, and now Rashee Rice is out, so I would go Geno Smith. I was surprised that you had him. Okay, beat the waiver wire. We got 4 teams on bye next week: Miami, Kansas City, Minnesota, and the Rams. We have an entire FFT Express episode dedicated to this very subject, but I'll just give you a few names. It's not a great week for quarterback replacements, but then again, it's not like a week where you're missing stud quarterbacks. But Deshaun Watson might be the best one. He's at Philadelphia. Running back, there are so many. Alexander Madison in shallow leagues. Antonio Gibson, let's see what happens with the carries this week. I think Tank Bigsby it's got a little bit of a Bucky Irving feel to me. Only maybe a few weeks behind that. We'll see. I hope Travis Etienne, who I think had a very good game last week, I hope he figures things out and just becomes Travis Etienne. But you've got to guard against that, and Tank Bigsby could be someone who starts taking goal line work too. And then there's just like every handcuff, but Ty Chandler's one I would prioritize. Ladd McConkey's on bye. He's done some good things. He's 66% rostered. If you want us to ask Christian Watson, he's 56% rostered. Wan'Dale Robinson against Cincinnati next week. I mean, that should be someone that you're missing Tyreek Hill. You're missing Jalen Waddle. You're missing Justin Jefferson next week. You're missing the Rams guys, whatever. So Wan'Dale Robinson's a good guy to get. Xavier Legette, Romeo Doubs, Trey Tucker. If Devontae Adams gets traded, Trey Tucker's 46% rostered. And then the only tight end I'll tell you about is Taysom Hill. I hope he can play next week, so go get him.
We don't know about the fractured ribs and how long he'll be out for. Xavier Legette, 49% rostered on CBS. So he's out there still. And he was impressive last week. I think he might have staying power the rest of the season. This might not be just a Adam Thielen injury thing. He would be a priority for me. Wan'Dale, for the reasons you mentioned, would be a priority for me too.
All right, we're going to take another break and talk about the Jets and the Vikings when we come back.
A Quiet Place Day 1 is now streaming on Paramount Plus. It's thrilling, terrifying. It will make your heart pound out of your chest. A Quiet Place Day 1, now streaming.
Here we go to the 6 games we're previewing, starting with Jets and Vikings. 2 good defensive teams here, but the Vikings are 4th in scoring, 7th in yards per play. This is the stat of the game that feels a little deceiving. The Vikings have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to wide receivers. They've seen the 2nd most wide receiver targets in the NFL. They are 4-0. You've had teams like the Texans and the Packers playing catch up. 4 wide receivers have scored 18 or more points against the Vikings. Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Stephon Diggs, and Deebo Samuel. Not Nico Collins. He was good, though. But yeah, all right, we talked about Garrett Wilson. He's a number 2 wide receiver. We'll compare him to some other players. Start Breece Hall. What about the other guys? What about Aaron Rodgers, Braylon Allen, Alan Lazard, Tyler Conklin? Are there any good starts on the Jets?
I would consider Conklin a startable fantasy tight end. I know he let you down last week, but I would give him another shot this week against Minnesota. I don't feel great about Lazard or Mike Williams. If I had to pick one, I think I have Lazard higher, but I don't feel really great about either single one of them. Braylon Allen might get you 8 or 9 fantasy points regardless of format.
Would you start Jordan Addison in this game? Would you consider starting him over Garrett Wilson?
I would not consider him over Garrett Wilson, even though he has more upside than Garrett Wilson. I think Jordan Addison is more of a flex play and a good flex play.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, we spent a lot of time on Garrett Wilson and one question for each game. If you missed that, you can select that in the time codes here. So let's talk about Sam Darnold. And I was reading, I think, Bill Barnwell, who does a great job with everything. He's so in depth. I think he said that Darnold, you know what, I'll try to find it. But he said, as you talk about him, Darnold's getting away with a lot of turnover-worthy plays.
Yes.
Not that he's not playing well. And we've seen it too, right? We've seen it. We've watched Sam Darnold. Yeah, anyway, where are you on Darnold against the Jets?
I like that Sam Darnold has had strong games against the 49ers and the Texans. They run a similar defensive scheme as the New York Jets. What does that mean? They play a lot of zone coverage. They don't blitz very often. You mentioned earlier about teams that can get to the quarterback while only rushing 4 defenders, i.e. not blitzing. Well, the Jets rank 7th in pass rush pressure rate there at 36%. The 49ers are higher. I think that just tells you something about what Darnold is able to navigate. And I also like the fact that his coaching staff is just going to keep letting him throw. There were times last week where he had some bad throws, and what did they do? They didn't get shy and start running it with Aaron Jones and completely get away from Sam Darnold. They let Darnold keep throwing, and that's a good sign. And his receiving core is healthy. That's a good sign. And I know that everybody's worried, oh, Sauce Gardner's going to shut down Justin Jefferson. He might when Justin Jefferson's lined up against him, but I wouldn't bet against Justin Jefferson. And I'm not going to say that Sam Darnold's going to be a bad quarterback either. It's a question of upside, but there are so many quarterbacks. Think about what I said 5 minutes ago about Geno Smith. What's Geno Smith's upside this week? It's around 20 fantasy points. Could say the same thing for guys like Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes. I think Darnold's kind of in that boat. I think with his rushing prowess, maybe he can get you to 22 or 23 fantasy points. So I'm okay with Darnold as a start this week, and I love him as a bye week replacement.
I think Geno Smith has more upside than 20 points, just to throw that out there. I mean, all he has to do is throw 2 touchdowns, which he hasn't done in a game yet. But Darnold scored in his last 3 games 24, 31, and 26.5 fantasy points and 6 point per pass and touchdown leagues. And he has done that with 26 to 28 pass attempts. But yes, Bill Barnwell talking about his 4 fumbles, which he put all on him. He's thrown more turnover-worthy balls than other surprise quarterbacks. So there are some issues with Sam Darnold. Could be pumpkin week. No, but I think he's, I don't feel like it's going to be the case. And by the way, I'm really curious to see, not that this would change any start or sit decisions. They did actually move Sauce Gardner around a little bit last week against Cortland Sutton. A little bit he shadowed Sutton, which is unusual. Yeah. Will he do that? Will he follow Justin Jefferson? I think it's fascinating. Start Aaron Jones, Addison as a flex, and don't start a Minnesota tight end. And then let's talk about the DSTs here, because it looks like all 3 of you, Jamie, Heath, and you would be okay getting away from the Jets DST. They're about 10th, but the Vikings look like more of a must start. Someone asked earlier, Vikings DST or Steelers DST?
I have the Vikings 2 spots.
Vikings 2 spots ahead of the Steelers. Okay. Seahawks or Jets?
Seahawks are my number 2 DST.
So Seahawks over the Vikings. All right. Did we do enough Brock Purdy or did you say Mahomes or Purdy?
Purdy.
Not Purdy. Sam Darnold. Sorry, Sam Darnold or
I was wondering if you were setting me up for game of the week with that.
No, I'm good. That's our next game is Arizona, San Francisco.
So you'll set me up then. Good.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Purdy and Darnold over Mahomes.
Yeah. Purdy and Darnold over Mahomes. Okay, Darnold or Kyler?
Darnold.
All right, you son of a B. I got to think of it. No, I got to think of a different one now. I got to think of a different one.
No, don't do that to yourself.
Arizona's at San Francisco. This game sucks. Nobody wants to see this crap game. We're not even going to preview it. Let's go to our next game. Now, Arizona at San Francisco. Yeah, we could start with Kyler Murray here. And I'm going to give you some great Kyler Murray stats. But how do you feel about Kyler this week?
Terrible track record against the 49ers. I think you have to go back to 2020 for his last good game against them, and it involved rushing for him to get it done. And he hasn't been really that great. 3 games this year, under 17 fantasy points. That makes me nervous. I do like the matchup a lot better if there's no Fred Warner. for the 49ers because they've already taken a loss with Javon Hargrave at D tackle. If Fred Warner's out, that does keep the middle of the field pretty open. And with Trey McBride coming back, that helps. So I'm not going to be in love with Kyler Murray, but I'm still going to start him ahead of guys like Mahomes, Dalton, Richardson, Derek Carr, Caleb Williams. Like, I'm not going to like sink him because he's been so bad, but I do worry about the upside, more so about him or with him than with Geno. I'd rather start Geno than Kyler at this point.
You know, everyone's making fun of me in the chat today for my shirt, and it's hurting my feelings. They say it looks like I'm naked, basically.
You've had that shirt for 15 years.
No, not really.
Shirt?
What'd you say?
Purdue?
Purdue, yeah, it does look a little Purdue-y. Jamie ruined my blue shirt. I can't wear it anymore. Like, it says a purchase that it is done. I'll never wear it. Someone said Kyler Murray is washed up. Let me give you some Kyler stats.
Please.
All right. This is crazy. He is averaging the second most yards per attempt in his career. He has the highest ADOT in his career, or air yards per pass attempt in his career, by far. Fifth highest air yards per pass attempt in his career, and his highest completion percentage of his career. Usually you go higher ADOT, you go lower completion percentage. And he has the highest touchdown rate of his career. If I told you all of those things, you would think Kyler Murray is having a breakout season. And he's on pace for 518 rushing yards, which is a little low for him, but still good. So what's the problem? 27 pass attempts per game. He's on pace. He's on pace for 697 rushing yards. Last year was on pace for 518. So the problem is pass attempts. The other problem is all those stats I gave you are heavily influenced by one great game against the Rams. He just hasn't been nearly as good in the other games. But he's had 2 games with 21 or 22 pass attempts. You basically cannot be good that way. It's very difficult. So it's on paper, Kyler Murray is a very good version of himself. He's just not throwing enough. And I don't know if it's that simple. I think he's going to be good this week, though. I'm going to start him.
Sounds like you're making the case for him to be a good DFS option.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we love Purdy. Purdy's the start of the week. Like, they should have to throw more than 25 times in this game. Let's throw 30 or more.
I would think so. But here's another thing about Fred Warner being out. That might incentivize the Cardinals to run. And there's no reason for them to get away from James Conner. Conner's been running very well this season.
Would fantasy managers get away from James Conner, or is he a must start?
No, he's a must start.
All right. Marvin Harrison Jr. is also a must start. He's a top 12 wide receiver. He's a little bit lower on him in full PPR. I think that the route depth in the ADOT, it's just too high, but whatever, you're starting him. Start Trey McBride if he plays. Kittle or McBride?
It's McBride.
Ferguson or McBride?
It's McBride.
All right. Brock Purdy, you have him 6th. Jamie has him 7th. Heath's a little bit lower. They talked about that.
I've got him at 7. I moved Baker ahead of him before the game.
Oh, muzzle. Good job.
Well, sometimes it works out.
Hey, maybe it won't work out. Maybe we'll get a 30-plus point game from Purdy. That'd be awesome, too. Here's what I find so fascinating about this matchup. I talked about this a couple days ago. Or I guess it was yesterday when Jamie brought up Purdy. Different version of Brock Purdy this year. Usually the 49ers are a low ADOT team with the most yak. Right now, they may be like last in yak per catch, but Purdy is among the leaders. I think he's 2nd in air yards per pass attempt. I might be a little off on those numbers, but it's high air yards, low yak. The Cardinals give up a lot of yak. They don't give up the downfield stuff as much. The 49ers are the type of team that typically, and I think they certainly can be a team that just destroys that. Like, you give up a lot of yak against the Niners, that's a terrible pairing there. It's great for Purdy. It's also great for Debo. I'm excited about him.
It would be great for Ayuk if he could actually do that too.
Well, Ayuk is not the yak guy necessarily. He's the more downfield guy.
I disagree. I think he's definitely a yak guy.
Not compared to Debo.
Not compared to Debo, but still somebody who can win off the snap, catch a slant, and turn a 10-yard pass into a 40-yard touchdown.
So rank Debo, Ayuk, and Josh Jacobs.
I believe I'm going to have Jacobs at the top of that list.
And then Debo and then Ayuk. How about Chuba Hubbard?
Chuba's going to be ahead of Debo and Ayuk as well.
How about Devon Achane?
Achane will be lower. I would make an Achane sandwich with Debo and Ayuk.
There you go. All right. And start George Kittle.
And don't lick the knife.
49ers DST is pretty high in the rankings for you guys. Carolina is at Chicago. We'll see if the Panthers can do well against a good defense. The Bears have held the Titans to 17 points, the Texans to 19, the Colts to 21, the Rams to 18. They're 8th in points allowed. They're 11th in yards per play. But this game, Dave, looks great for running backs. Stat of the game number 1, the Bears have allowed at least 82 yards and a touchdown to 3 running backs in 4 games. And stat of the game number 2, the Panthers 17.8 or more fantasy points to a running back in 4 running backs in 4 games. So I know we're going to buy it with Chuba Hubbard. He's got to be just a must start, right?
Yes.
What about Swift?
I've got him as a top 20 running back. I'm buying back in. One game where he saw design targets and was also a check down guy for Caleb Williams. It's almost like the coaching staff beat it into Caleb Williams' head. It's okay to check down. We can win the game. Don't try and play Superman anymore. And if he sticks with that in an easier matchup than what he had last week, think about that. Last week was pretty easy. This is even easier. Then we should see DeAndre Swift put up good numbers again. Minimum 15 PPR points.
I have not been reading questions from the chat. Let me just go back to the last game real quick. Kyler Murray or Jaden Daniels?
Oh, Daniels. Daniels is top 3.
Yeah, Daniels.
Even against Cleveland.
Kyler or Dak, and Dave looks handsome today.
Oh, how nice. I will take Dak over Kyler.
Okay, but back to this game now. DeAndre Swift, I don't know what to make of those catches. That was crazy. 7 catches on 23 pass attempts, something like that. And
did you go back and watch them?
Yeah, I watched Caleb Williams dropbacks.
Okay.
It was so different than what he was typically doing. And Keenan Allen and Doomsday both played, but still not the goal line guy. That's what really holds me back from calling Swift a must start. And he was freaking horrible for 3 games. Like, one game doesn't change that, but you don't have him as a must start. You just have him in the top 20.
That's pretty close to must start territory in a week where there's a bunch of running back injuries and 4 teams on bye.
Are you starting the Bengals running backs or Swift?
I have Swift higher. Bengals running backs are splitting and they're playing Baltimore. Baltimore allows 2.7 yards per carry.
To running backs?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Pretty good. Deontay Johnson, layup, start him.
Yeah. Off the back of the glass and through the rim.
Yeah, look, it's tough. Nico Collins is the only wide receiver to score more than 12.2 PPR fantasy points against the Bears. That would be the Titans wide receivers, the rest of the Texans, the Colts wide receivers, and the Rams wide receivers. They haven't really been tested that much this year, but Deontay's just been so good.
It's too many targets. Too big to fail.
I skipped around, went from Bears to Panthers. So you talked about DJ Moore. Would you start DeAndre Swift or DJ Moore?
I think non-PPR, I'd be ready to go to Swift. Full PPR, still maybe Swift.
Really? Okay.
I mean, I listen, if you can't do it, you don't trust it. I get it. It's your team. But it's not like DJ Moore has been racking up huge numbers himself.
Not at all. Not at all.
And so now think about the situation for the Bears. Like, we just had a week where their running backs were involved in the offense and it worked out for them. They won the game. Do they get away from that because they think they can throw on Carolina and they just want to let Caleb Williams attempt 35 passes? Or are they going to try and win this game with the path of least resistance, as my buddy Prop Stars likes to say? And if they do that, then that means there's going to be some good running involved for Chicago, or at least they'll try.
Yeah, I like DJ Moore having a 25.6% target share.
Sure.
So I just want them to throw a little bit more, but you're right. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense for them to establish the run. DJ Moore. Let's see. DJ Moore or Wan'Dale Robinson if Neighbors is out.
I think I'll probably settle on Moore, but it'll be close.
It'd be Moore for me easily, but I mean, I understand the frustration. Moore or how about, done with Moore. What about Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze and Xavier Legette?
I think it's easy to get away from Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze. We had the one game with a ton of targets for Keenan Allen in week 1. And then last week he came back, not very many. Again, if the Bears can run the football, that means they're not going to have a lot of pass attempts in the game. And if their defense can slow down Carolina in some respect, that will help that cause. So I'm not excited about Keenan Allen. I want to be excited about Rome Odunze, but last week's game told me that the Bears didn't want to build on what he did in the matchup against Indianapolis. Keenan Allen came back, and they got the running backs involved. Look, they were looking for a win. They got it last week. Maybe that's part of their formula. That's my hunch. And so Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze are two guys I'm not as interested in. But I do think Carolina is going to keep throwing the football, and I think not every target can go to Deontay Johnson. And I think Xavier Legette looked really good last week. It was against a bad Bengals defense. This week is a step up in competition, but I still think he's going to get some decent numbers. I think he's got a safe floor of 11 PPR points.
All right, I'm going to read some questions from the chat. Non-PPR, James Conner or DeAndre Swift?
Conner.
Legette or Sutton, full PPR?
Sutton's probably safer than Legette.
By the way, I missed that one, but no politics in our chat, please. So if you have a avatar that's political or a name, I'm going to try not to read it. Legette or Ferguson at flex?
If you need upside, it's Legette, but I think Ferguson's the safer pick.
Legette or Jacoby Myers PPR?
Legette.
And that's it for now for this game. Okay. Legette or Keenan Allen. You've already answered that. Legette. Okay, cool. So anything else? Sitting Caleb Williams. Roshan's a stash. Oh, Kmet, starter sit.
Don't want to use him if I don't have to. Let's call him a streaming tight end.
And Bears. Okay, well, sorry. Pat Freiermuth over Cole Kmet.
Yes. Freiermuth. I would have started Otten, Conklin, Brenton Strange, Zach Ertz, all ahead of Cole Kmet.
Bears DST, a low-end starter. The Panthers have been a terrible matchup for DSTs with Andy Dalton, but it was Las Vegas and Cincinnati. All right, Indianapolis at Jacksonville. Dave, air it out. These two quarterbacks are top 3 in air yards per pass attempt. They're also top 3 in off-target rate, which go hand in hand. And they both give up their share of deep ball completions. You've got some bad defenses here, but some questionable offensive players. Who do you like in this game, Indianapolis at Jacksonville?
At quarterback, who do I like?
No, just in general. Like, which players are you jazzed about in this game?
I am jazzed about Brian Thomas Jr. I am jazzed about Christian Kirk, especially in PPR. I still think ETN is a number 2 fantasy running back. I wish Jonathan Taylor were playing. Who am I jazzed about in the Colts passing game? Depends on who the quarterback is.
Right.
It's kind of an all or nothing type thing. If it's Flacco, I'm definitely going to be jazzed about Pittman and Josh Downs. I might be okay with Downs if it's Richardson, but I'm still nervous about Anthony Richardson throwing the football. 4 attempts last week. At first I thought, oh, he made improvements. He was getting his foot down as he planted and released the football, but his first completion was close to being picked off. He had an off-target throw, and then he got hurt. And I don't know how healthy he is. If he's playing at sub 100%, does that mean he could run less? That could be a problematic on 2 fronts. And then if he gets hurt again, that's going to be really problematic for fantasy managers who start him. So I don't want to trust Anthony Richardson. We'll find out what the status report is on Friday. I do have Joe Flacco in my starting lineup in a couple of leagues where I need a bye week replacement. If Richardson's out, Flacco is going to be awesome. Top 12 type of quarterback. If Richardson's in, I've got him ranked outside of my top 15, and I'm going to have to go to my waiver wire. Might have to start somebody like Andy Dalton as my quarterback as a bye week replacement.
That's all right. That's
it's not great. I'd rather have Trevor Lawrence. Maybe I'll make some trades to get Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I pretty much skipped Andy Dalton. He's been so good, and you are, I guess, not that excited. You'd start Trevor Lawrence over Andy Dalton.
Yes. I mean, I think it's a dangerous matchup for Dalton.
It is.
He's not taking on the Raiders. He's not taking on the Bengals. The Bears defense is better. So
he's playing really well, though, isn't he?
What?
He's playing really well.
He's playing like Andy Dalton, which is a lot of good. There's some bad. I don't know what Bill Barnwell has to say about how many turnover-worthy throws he's made.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
He's had some.
I don't know if he's in the column. It was like early MVP, early most improved, that kind of stuff. I am so excited for Brian Thomas that I have to sort of contain myself because the Colts have allowed 78 yards or a touchdown to 6 wide receivers in 4 games. They've gotten killed by outside receivers. Brian Thomas, as good of a game as he had last week, 6 for 86 and a touchdown on 9 targets. He also just abused this cornerback and was open for a 28-yard touchdown, and Trevor Lawrence missed him. And by the way, Trevor Lawrence missed Christian Kirk on a 59-yard touchdown. It was horrible. That's like the low light of the season for this pathetic team. But Thomas, I'm at the point where I don't think I would do it, but my gut wants to start him over. I'm not Garrett Wilson, but yeah, I think I would start him over DJ Moore this week.
I'm starting him over Garrett Wilson.
All right, so you're all in. I think that I'm being a little bit too optimistic, and I have to rein it in a little bit because this team has looked so bad. But if you don't want to do that, the case for Brian Thomas is so easy to make, and starting him over Ayuk and DJ Moore and Garrett Wilson for you, I guess you're doing that.
I'm doing that. I'm starting him over Debo. He's
okay.
had 9 targets in each of his last 2 games. He's an outstanding young receiver, and I don't see his role changing, even if Evan Ingram plays or whenever Evan Ingram.
Game of the week, yeah.
Okay.
The Jaguars and the Colts.
Not bad.
Terrible defenses, Dave.
That's why.
Game of the week, hey. All right, you stole the original game of the week. You took it out for me, so
I think this was a better choice anyway. I think Trevor Lawrence, there's actually a path here for him over his next 3 games to possibly do well and help Jacksonville get on a winning streak. Their defense is bad, so they've got to be able to work around that. But I think Lawrence does get back on track. He's close. Those overthrows, that's just not who he is. And so it's just a matter of fixing those things. I'm sure that they addressed it in practice this week, and I would imagine that we're going to see good games against a bad defense that won't put a lot of pressure on Trevor Lawrence. This should be a win for Jacksonville, and Brian Thomas has a big game. Kirk has a big game. They're both top 20 for me. Trevor Lawrence should be higher in my rankings.
Yeah, Kirk's the other one. I mean, Kirk's had 10 to 12 targets, 2 straight games, 7 to 8 catches. Question here from Mike. Would you start Brian Thomas over George Pickens? And he's in non-PPR.
It's close in non-PPR. I think I might take Pickens just because that Cowboys defense has so many pass rush issues that it'll help Justin Fields locate and throw accurately to Pickens.
Okay.
That's how close it is, though. I've got Pickens 12th. I've got Thomas 15th.
Brian Thomas Jr., Zach Moss, or Terry McLaurin?
Thomas.
Okay. Just looking for more questions here. Brian Thomas Jr. or Xavier Worthy. That's definitely going to be Thomas.
That's definitely Thomas. Yes.
Yeah, Trey Sermon or Javonte Williams?
I like Javonte this week. I love the matchup. I'm expecting the Broncos to just have Javonte and Jaleel McLaughlin in their backfield. And I think Javonte can come through. He might actually get hold everything, everybody. 13 PPR points. Wow. Wow for Javonte.
So Javonte over Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon or DJ Moore?
As of now, it's Moore. I can't be that excited about Trey Sermon.
Right. And yeah, it says rank Sermon if Taylor is out. So where do you think he'll end up?
Looking at my rankings right now, he's going to be in that range with Najee, Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt. So a low-end number 2 running back.
I take all those guys over him.
I might as well, but that's the range that he'll be in.
And yes, there is a chance. Rob asking, is there a chance Taylor plays this weekend? There is. If he doesn't practice on Friday, I think you could pretty much rule him out. But that's why we'll keep you posted on our mailbag show, which will be out after the practices. All right, Lawrence, the opportunity is there. He's just not playing well, but this team is just so bad defensively. For ETN, Bigsby, you can't start yet. ETN is like a top 17 running back. He hasn't had more than 13 carries in a game. There's not much else you can say other than he's still Travis Etienne. I just hope he doesn't lose the goal line work because I feel like that was happening last week, and we'll see. Okay, anything else? Oh, Evan Ingram. He's 72% rostered. Do you start him if he plays? And if Evan Ingram plays, does that lower Kirk and Thomas?
I think it could lower Kirk. I don't think it might lower Thomas a bit, but not that much. And remember, it's going to be his first game back coming off of a hamstring. They might take it easy with him. Would I start him over Conklin? Definitely. Would I start him over Freiermuth? To me, that's close. That's going to be about the range. So he's going to be a starting fantasy tight end if he's active.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Man, I got a lot of evidence here. My roster tight end, waiting for this guy to get back. And
I just moved Trevor Lawrence to 12th in my rankings.
Wow. Oh, over who?
Over Geno, over Kyler, over Mahomes.
Over Macho Grande? Kyler, okay. Trevor Lawrence, Kyler. Interesting. Green Bay's at the Rams. I know you're not starting. Did I miss anything there? Wait, sorry. Let's go back real quick. Sorry, Debo. Switch that lower third. We're still on Jaguars Colts. There it is. If Flacco starts, where would Pittman and Downs be in your rankings?
Pittman would be top 20. Downs would be top 24. And I think the win that I predicted for Jacksonville would be in jeopardy. Okay. I thought the offense looked so different and so much better with Flacco last week that I can't help but think that it'll continue to be like Flacco came in off the bench and cut up the Steelers. The Steelers.
All right, Packers, Rams. Now we can switch it. Jordan Love is the number 4 quarterback behind Jaden Daniels, but behind Lamar and Allen. But Jordan Love, start him up. This is another bad defense, the Rams. And they give up the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Josh Jacobs, we're starting him this week. He's 11th for you. I tried to make some Josh Jacobs trade offers yesterday. I'm still working on it, Dave. Better times are ahead for him.
Let's hear a couple of them.
Oh, one was I would give up McBride. This was a blockbuster that got turned down. Okay. McBride, Kamara, and Garrett Wilson I have Ferguson, by the way, for Jacobs, CeeDee Lamb, and Khalil Shakir. And Darst thought I was ripping him off, but I wasn't. He just didn't want to do it.
I think that'll come out pretty close on the trade chart.
Yeah, and this the thing is, like, I have McBride and Ferguson, so I'm desperately trying to upgrade somewhere else. Okay, start Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed, who is the wide receiver I just talked about?
Michael Pittman.
I don't know. Jaden Reed would be ahead of like Brian Thomas, and
he's a top 10 receiver.
Yeah, start Jaden Reed. And what about Wicks? What about Dobbs if he plays?
I don't know if Dobbs is going to play, so I wouldn't consider him in our plans. Dontavian Wicks is a borderline number 2 wide receiver because I'm expecting the Packers offense to be very, very explosive. They will do what they wish. Jordan Love will throw a bunch, and he will complete a bunch.
Yeah, I'm excited about Wicks, but they did throw 50-plus times last week. We got a question here. Josh Jacobs or Brian Thomas?
Oh, I love both those guys. I would bet. I'll double check to make sure.
I'm going.
Typing. I've got Brian Thomas behind Josh Jacobs in my PPR rankings.
Okay, good. Me too. Downs or Wicks? Let's say if it's easy, if it's Richardson. If it's Flacco, Downs or Wicks?
I think I might take Downs.
Wicks or Hunt?
Wicks over Kareem Hunt.
Okay. What else we got here? So Dobbs is like 48th in the rankings right now. So even if he plays, I think that you're underselling him a little bit here. I think he'll probably get, about 10 to 12 fantasy points with a chance to score, but fair enough. Tyler Kraft is almost a must start. I mean, it's crazy. It's like you'd start him over Ingram and Njoku if they play.
It feels a little knee-jerk-y because he had this huge game last week, but he's already been playing a lot of snaps for the Packers, running a lot of routes for the Packers. He just kind of put it all together last week when the Packers were playing from behind. If this is going to be a competitive game, Kraft should be fine. I think I might be a little too excited about Kraft, and I might move him down a little bit. Still going to be top 10, but I don't know if I could say that he's going to get more catches and yards than Bowers and then Freiermuth as well. So top 10, yes. Top 6, top 5, probably not.
Okay. Every Green Bay wide receiver except for Malik Heath has an I don't know if this is actually, I'm sorry. It was week 4. Every Green Bay wide receiver except Malik Heath had an ADOT of 11.4 yards or more. That's crazy. Kraft is the check down guy. 6.2 yard ADOT last week. It's really like Kate Otten. That's like a lot of tight ends, I guess. But okay, that's the Packers. Someone asked, I think Wicks or Jawan Jennings, and I just realized I totally skipped Jawan Jennings.
Yeah. Jennings is a flex. I think Wicks has a little more upside.
Is this true? Did I say, someone says, Adam, remember when you said Mooney or Tyreek the other day? Oh, yeah, I probably did ask that. I hope we said Mooney. Probably not, though. All right, on the Rams side of the ball, who do you want to start other than Kyron Williams?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, the receivers are pretty interesting to me. Atwell is 44% rostered. Whittington is widely available. Atwell is the downfield guy. Whittington is the easy, going to catch 5 or 6 passes kind of guy.
The Cooper Cup replacement. Yes.
What's the difference between Whittington and Wan'Dale Robinson?
Wan'Dale Robinson will get more targets, a lot more, because his team can't run the ball. Wan'Dale Robinson might have more than double the targets for Jordan Whittington.
Yeah, and Whittington might have double the yards.
You also use the word want. Who do I want to start?
Yeah.
On the Rams. I don't want to start any of them. Would I use Atwell as a bye week replacement or a number 3 receiver? Yes, he's in the conversation. Whittington could be 2, but he's behind Atwell for me.
Jipperton wants to know, would you start Wicks or Cortland Sutton in PPR?
I have Wicks over Sutton as of now.
All right. And Parkinson, I actually still think Parkinson's okay just because tight end sucks and he gets targets. Heath agrees. He has Parkinson in the top 10. Dave and Jamie have Parkinson about 17th. So we're going to Green Bay's DST. You like them? I don't really. Yeah. All right. Yep. If Jair Alexander plays, that helps a lot. Let's take a break. We got one more game left. It's the Giants and the Seahawks, and we'll be right back on FFT. Giants Seahawks, potentially or probably meaningless stat of the game. These two teams allow the fewest receiving yards and the fewest yards per catch to slot receivers. Well, that's
why do you think that's meaningless?
Because I think it's just noise at this point. I don't necessarily think like the Giants don't really have a slot cornerback right now, although I think they might be getting a little healthier. But yeah, it's something to watch. Like last week, Wan'Dale Robinson went up against the Cowboys, who going into the game were giving up the first or second fewest receiving yards to slot receivers, and he still had a good PPR game, but he didn't have a lot of yards.
Right. What was his efficiency like in the
game?
Yeah,
no, I mean they did a good job. It was 11 catches for 71 yards on 14 targets. Anywho, we're sitting Daniel Jones. We don't want to start the Giants running back. Neighbors, if he plays, you start him, but he's probably not going to play. So where's Wan'Dale for you right now in your rankings?
Right now, he's a number 3 receiver in full PPR, but a high-end one. He might creep to that border between number 2 and number 3 wide receiver in full PPR. Non-PPR, he won't even sniff it.
Is he the best Giants start? Better than a running back?
I would say so.
Okay. And then just in case you're desperate, Darius Slayton should definitely see an increase in targets. Darius Slayton, his last 3 games he played without Malik Neighbors. It's just a funny thing to say. It was the last 3 games of 2023. He caught a touchdown in each game. He scored 17.2 or more PPR fantasy points in all 3 games, 3 straight games to end the 2023 season. But so far, this is a very good defense, giving up the 8th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. Geno Smith, yeah, we talked about it. He's been good. He's got bad touchdown luck, but then there's also this. He leads the NFL in pass attempts and passing yards, Geno Smith. He has one of the lowest touchdown rates, 15th in yards per attempt. I love that he's rushed for 30 or more yards in 2 of 4 games. But when they lead the NFL in pass attempts, but when they get to the red zone, it's completely different. Mm-hmm. They are 23rd in red zone pass attempts, 17th in green zone pass attempts. For the season, the Seahawks are 3rd in pass rate, but 22nd in pass rate in the red zone, 15th in the green zone. I don't know if that's going to continue, but that's kind of what's holding Geno Smith back. And that's why he's a tricky player this week.
I agree. I think, and when they get inside the 5, just makes all the sense in the world for them to lean on their run game. Kenneth Walker should score.
How do you feel? Yeah, Ken Walker, I mean, we love this week. How do you feel about JSN and Lockett? Because Metcalf's a must start.
No, I don't feel great about them. They're both outside of my top 36. I'd rather take the chance on Xavier Worthy or Jordan Addison. Josh Downs, whether Flacco plays or not, would be ahead of them. I know that JSN has been fun, but you mentioned how the Giants have been against slot receivers. I buy into that a little bit more. And he only has 2 games in his career with 15-plus PPR points. If you're starting JSN, what are you hoping for? A game like last week? Okay, it's possible. But I think he could do even less than that because I think Seattle will be able to run the football. I don't think the Giants will be able to keep up on the scoreboard. So unless they leave JSN wide open in the end zone, I don't see him having a very big game.
6.5 point spread, which is kind of big, but I don't know. Without Neighbors, it just feels like the Giants from last year almost, but we'll see. I got to say, I mean, the Giants are 1-3, but they're not a bad 1-3. They lost to the Vikings. They lost by 1 possession to the Commanders. They lost by 1 possession to the Cowboys. They beat the Browns on the road, but I think Neighbors has been such a big component of that. So we'll see. Sit Noah. Yeah, right. I mean, sit Noah Fant. And would you start, how many of those replacement running backs, Sermon, Akers, Madison, Tyrone Tracy, or even Devin Singletary, would you start ahead of Zach Charbonnet?
Oh, pretty much all of them. I thought you were going to say over the Giants guys.
No, I mean, look, Charbonnet, he catches the ball, right?
He can get you 8 PPR points. I feel like he's got a very low ceiling as long as Kenneth Walker's healthy.
All right, so then what do you last sum it up with how you feel about Singletary and Tracy? Just again, sorry.
I'd be okay with Singletary as a borderline number 2 fantasy running back if he plays, because I think he'd still get a decent amount of work. I don't know what the efficiency will look like, but maybe he can score and he'll certainly catch some passes. Tracy's been playing like 20% of the snaps as is, so maybe that jumps to 40%, and then another running back comes in and plays the rest. I wouldn't feel good about it this week against Seattle.
Geno Smith or Dak Prescott? I'll read some chat questions.
I would rather have Dak.
Geno or Mahomes?
Geno over Mahomes.
Someone said, oh, yeah. Wicks, JSN, or Xavier Worthy, half PPR?
I've got Wicks at the top of that list.
Okay. Right. That's it, Dave. That's it for
What's it?
That's it for the show. Wandale or Jordan Addison is our last question.
Nope, you said that's it for the show.
Right, sorry, race mode. You're done.
I'm kidding. Wandale if it's PPR. Non-PPR, I'd go with Addison. Hey, Adam, how many leagues did you go up against Darnell Mooney in?
I don't know. I haven't checked my scores.
I feel like I went up against him in like half my leagues.
I
always go through my scores after Thursday night, and I'm just going, oh, God, unbelievable.
Oh, no. I'm losing 36-0 to Jamie in FFT. Who'd I face? Oh, not bad. Godwin, Otten, and Younghoe Koo. That could have been worse. Younghoe Koo had a huge game, though. Oh, Jamie is going to crush me this week. But we see 36-0. I figured there was like an Evans in there, maybe a Mooney, something like that. Mooney!
Mooney would have had that all by himself.
We are done. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll talk to you on CBS Sports Network, HQ, Mailbag, you know it, and we'll talk to you soon on Fantasy Football Today.